Today I am very excited to talk to you guys about my 5 most profitable crops. And so this is a new list, at least in a slightly different order than crops I've talked about in the past. And I've updated some of the yield information based on like what we're doing right now. So if you're not familiar with my crop value rating system, click up here and check out that video, though you'll still get a ton of value out of this video. Basically what I'm looking for in a crop, so just in summary of that, what I'm looking for in a crop are 5 things essentially. Number 1 is popularity. You want people to know what that crop is. Number 2 is days to maturity. I target crops that have shorter days to maturity, so 60 days or less. Number 3 is yield per foot, so yield per linear foot in the bed, so I do 30-inch beds. Next is price per pound. And the 5th one is seasonality. How many of the seasons can I grow this crop? Like, can I grow it for 4 months of the year, 5 months of the year, 6 months of the year? So if you check out that other video, it'll kind of cover those details. But let's start with number 1. Salad mix is our number 1 product. We move more of that than anything else. It makes up for at least a quarter of the total revenues of our farm. And our salad mix has a variety of things in it. It's, for the most part, it's a mix of different lettuces. So we grow a lettuce called Salanova lettuce, and I've done videos on this before. Salanova lettuce we do as transplants, so we do it at 6-inch centers, so 4 rows in a bed, and we get astronomical yields off this crop. We get on average, so all of my beds are 50 foot long. I've changed that. In my book I talk about 25-foot beds. I now do a standard 50-foot bed, except the odd shorter ones here and there. But on a 50-foot bed, we're averaging 120 pounds per bed. So that's usually over 3 cuts. So it's usually sort of a diminishing returns, like the first cut might be 50 pounds, the second cut 40 pounds, the third cut 30 pounds. But that's an average. Recently, we've been getting our first cut at 80 pounds and our second cut at 60 pounds. So I try to be conservative with my numbers just to be realistic. So we're getting an average of 120 pounds per bed over 3 cuts. So those, between each cut, you've got anywhere between 10 to 14 days. In the really colder part of the season, there might be, you know, almost 21 days of recovery between each cut, so the crop will sit in the ground longer. But so on one bed, so we sell this for around $8 a pound. We're making $960 per crop, right? So in my farm, I plant at least 2 or 3 more crops after this. So in my high rotation area, as I call them, we have an average of 4 crops per season. And this is where, if you know my book and you know my work, this is where these numbers, when you get into crops like this, kind of blow a lot of those averages that I come up with out of the water, because this crop is just so profitable. Okay, my number 2 crop is microgreens, and so I'm making sort of a broad term there. For the most part, my cash crops in microgreens are sunflower and pea shoots. I do a ton of those. I do them year-round. They have a short date of maturity, about 2 days from seed to harvest. And you know, some of them are more profitable than others. I did a video on my top 3 microgreens, so you can check that one out here. But microgreens are fantastic because they meet all the 5 characteristics of a profitable crop, or what makes a crop valuable. And I can do them year-round, short date of maturity, high yield per square foot. They don't have to occupy land, which is a huge advantage. So microgreens are great for a lot of farms because they allow a farm to have a product that's not in the ground and that they can do year-round. So you can make different salad mixes with microgreens. You know, I do all kinds of different microgreens, but and I make different mixes with them. But these 2, the pea shoots and the sunflower shoots, are my staples. We do them every single week, consistently, year-round. So that's what makes them valuable. On average, we profit, or not, we gross profit about $20 per flat. So that's a 10-20 flat, 1 inch deep. And so that's gross. You know, it depends on the crop. Sometimes there's anywhere between $2 to $5 in cost for soil, seed, and labor. But that's about it. So let's say on average we're netting about $15 per flat. So keep in mind, that's year-round. This is arugula. This is my number 3. It meets all 5 of my criteria. It's a consistent crop. We on average yield 60 pounds per bed, so that could be over 3 cuts. And that is variable, and sometimes we get way more. Like I'm gonna harvest this tomorrow morning, and I wouldn't be surprised if we got 40 pounds off this one cut. So it's a 50-foot bed. We sell this for around $10 a pound. And so on average we make about $600 per 50-foot bed. It's great. It's a fast-growing crop. In the summertime, it's 21 days from seed to harvest. Obviously a little bit longer on the shoulder season, and I find certain varieties of arugula are kind of finicky when it comes to how well they germinate in cold weather. Like arugula is considered a cool weather green, and it certainly will, you certainly can grow it in cold. Some varieties like the cold better than others. This is my favorite variety. It's called Voyager, and it doesn't do as well germinating in cold soil, and we had some challenges with that at the beginning of our season. But arugula is a fantastic crop. It's an acquired taste. You know, people either love it or hate it. For us, it's really popular at restaurants and grocery stores. Used to be fairly popular at the farmers market, but chefs would buy the most of it. Sometimes I'm sending 2 10-pound boxes to one restaurant on any given week, and we've recently discovered that it's very popular amongst grocery stores, and I mean that's going to be a cultural and geographical thing. Some people won't know what arugula is in some areas, but where we are, people love it. Here's a classic, spinach. Everybody loves spinach. It's a common crop, especially up here. People eat it in salad, people cook with it. There's a variety of different things you can do with it, but it is a good yielder, and I can grow it pretty much every season of the year except the summer. So it really wins on all 5 categories when we talk about the CVR, the crop value rating. We on average get 70 pounds per 50-foot bed and sell it at around $8 per pound, so we get about $560 per bed. And it's a quick growing crop. You know, it's even in the colder spring and the fall, it's ready in less than 40 days. We don't grow it in the summer. Like my last plantings of spinach start around early June, mid-June, depending on the season. But it's a consistent staple. We get, you know, 2, 3, sometimes 4 cuts. With my overwintered spinach, stuff that I plant in October and then over the winter and early spring, we'll get sometimes 6 cuts off beds. So, you know, it depends on the season and all that. But you know, one thing that's really cool about spinach is you can market it in different ways. So this first cut, this is a premium cut. It's a baby green, so we'll use the quick cut greens harvester to cut this. And if you don't know what that is, click the link below. Check out that tool. It's a game changer. We'll use the greens harvester. On the 2nd and 3rd cut, sometimes 4th cuts, the crop gets bigger and it becomes a different product. So that's the kind of product you can market to people who are going to cook with it, or you know, process it and use it in some different way. Whereas this type of green is a standalone salad green, and you can sell it at a premium price. So one thing that's interesting about that is the yields change. You know, if you let a spinach bed get really big, you'll get these huge leaves, but you can't sell it at the same price as you can at the premium leaf, but you get a higher yield. So in a way, it all equals out. So profitable crop for us, and it's been a consistent winner over my 8 years of farming. All right, number 5 is the white salad turnip, or Tokyo turnips, or Hakurai, whatever you want to call them. I commonly call them Hakurai, and that's what my customers know them as. I exclusively sell this crop to restaurants, and it's a very profitable crop in the sense that it grows really quickly. I get about 80 pounds per bed on it. We cut the tops off, we leave about 2 inches because that's what chefs typically like. Sell it at $6 a pound, so we're getting about $504 per bed in 36 days. For the most part, we harvest turnips just by pulling them out of the ground and then tearing off the greens and leaving about 2 inches of greens. We only sell these to a select group of chefs, and that's how they like them. So it's a very profitable crop when you really consider that. It, you know, as a dollar value, it's not quite as profitable as say lettuce, but it's out of the ground quicker. So if you really factor that in, it might really compete with it in that regard. It's chefs love it because you can use it in multiple ways. You can bake it, you can braise it, you can fry it, you can steam it. You can use the greens. The greens are edible. You can steam the greens. You can juice the greens. So there's multiple products you can sell out of it. But one of the great things about it is that it has a lot of optionality in the field, in the sense that you don't need to sell it at the specific size like with radishes. With a radish, if a radish gets too big, it gets pithy and woody, and it's no longer edible, and well, maybe edible, but it doesn't taste good. Whereas a turnip, you can have a turnip the size of a quarter or a dime and it tastes great. And you grow it to the size of a baseball and it still tastes great. So it gives you options in that regard. But perhaps the biggest caveat to this crop is that you need to cover it with insect netting all the time. Well, it depends on the climate you're in, but in my experience, if I don't cover this with insect netting, I can lose the entire crop, and it's happened to me many times throughout the years. So I've uncovered this to show you guys, but just like these insect nettings behind me, this crop needs to be covered from the time that it's seeded until the time that it's harvested. Otherwise, you can jeopardize the whole crop, and sometimes all it takes is a small rip in your insect netting for the cabbage root maggot, which is the pest that is the biggest problem for it, to get in there, and it can compromise the entire crop, and then you've got worm damage and all kinds of brown spots all over your turnips, and then they're no longer marketable. So that's my number 5. Well, that is my top 5 crops. If you guys have found that helpful, hit the subscribe button right now if you're new, and check out my website, theurbanfarmer.co, where I have links to my book, my workshops, my online course. I've got tons of content out there for those of you who really want to consider starting to urban farm for a career, because you can certainly make a career out of doing this. You know, imagine how many people out there with a suburban sized yard like this that could make a living growing food in the front and backyard and maybe their neighbor's yard. I'm telling you, it's possible. I have hundreds of people around the world doing it. There's a lot of success stories out there. I wish you guys luck, and we'll talk to you later.